Lagos was a city that rarely stopped to blink. Its people moved like breathless seconds, chasing dreams that seemed to slip just out of reach. But in the middle of that concrete chaos stood Kanye Akba, calm, composed, and always a step ahead. Tall, with warm brown skin and a commanding quietness, Kanye was the kind of man who drew attention without asking for it. His life was routine, success-driven, and emotionally safe. Working as a senior strategist at a leading creative firm, he had seen all the games, flirtations masked as business, connections made and broken. He had sworn that nothing in this city could surprise him anymore. Then Kamara walked in. She wasn't announced. Just another new hire from HR. A content creator. But the moment she stepped into the conference room that Monday morning, Kanye knew something had shifted. She wore a yellow dress like sunshine had spilled on her skin. Her afro puffed confidently, unbothered. She had the eyes of someone who had seen things but chose to smile anyway. Her laughter? It came freely, like it didn't owe pain any room. When she introduced herself in that smooth Delta Igbo tone, "I'm Kamara Inebili, and I tell stories that make people feel things they didn't know they carried," Kanye's heart stuttered. She was smart, fiery, unpredictable. She called him out during brainstorming sessions, challenged his ideas, wrote scripts that made the team laugh, cry, argue. She was poetry in motion, and Kanye, stoic, guarded Kanye, was utterly captivated. What started as work collaborations turned into late-night messages. "Kamara, why do you always look like you're calculating the meaning of life?" "Kanye, maybe because I'm trying to understand how someone like you exists in this world." One lunch turned into many. One conversation stretched into hours. She'd talk about growing up with her mother in Warri, about dancing in the rain, about how she still cried during old Nollywood movies. He shared pieces of himself he didn't even know he had, stories of his childhood, his strained relationship with his father, his fears. It didn't take long before the city noticed. They were a storm and a song. Kamara brought chaos into his order, light into his shadows. And Kanye brought steadiness to her wildfire. In the office, everyone teased them, the lovebirds, Lagos Romeo and Juliet. But no one dared come between them. Not when Kamara looked at him like he was the safest place in the world. Not when Kanye stared at her like she was his new religion. It was in the small things. The way she'd fix his collar absent-mindedly. The way he remembered her coffee order without asking. How they walked in sync without trying. How their laughter echoed even after the elevator doors closed. One night, after a company retreat in Lekki, Kamara leaned on his shoulder while they watched the waves crash. "I used to think love was noise," she whispered. "Loud and dramatic. But this, with you, it's peace." He kissed her forehead. "You're everything I didn't know I was looking for." From that moment, Kanye Akba knew. This wasn't just love. This was destiny written in the stars of the Delta sky. She had swept him off his feet in a city that never paused, and now he couldn't imagine breathing without her. And neither could she. Their love wasn't perfect, but it was the kind that made strangers smile. It was the kind people secretly prayed for. A fusion of two souls who never planned to find each other, but now that they had, they were unstoppable. Kanye had always believed love was something you grew into slowly, like a tree finding its roots, one day at a time. But with Kamara, love bloomed fast and full, like the sudden Lagos rain that drenched you before you had time to run. It had been 1 year since that first stolen glance in the conference room. A year of voice notes, midnight confessions, fights that always ended in laughter, and the quiet knowing that they were building something real. Something that could weather storms. The night he proposed, Lagos was in one of its rare moods, calm, unhurried. The sea at Tarkwa Bay shimmered under moonlight, and Kanye, hands slightly trembling, pulled her away from the group bonfire under the pretense of just catching some air. She didn't suspect a thing. Not when he reached for her hand. Not even when he began talking too slowly, choosing his words like they were breakable glass. "Kamara," he said, voice husky, "I've spent most of my life looking for peace. And then you came, with your wild stories, your storm eyes, your soft chaos, and suddenly, peace looked like you. She smiled, eyes searching his. Why are you sounding like you're about to sell me insurance? He laughed nervously, then dropped to one knee. Her hand flew to her mouth. Kanye, I love you, he said simply. And I want to spend the rest of my days choosing you, through every good day, every tough one. Marry me, Kamara. Tears welled in her eyes. You're mad, she whispered, laughing through her tears. You didn't even let me dress fancy for this. But you're always beautiful, he replied, slipping the silver ring onto her finger. She didn't answer right away. She just threw herself into his arms, holding him like she never wanted to let go. Yes, she breathed into his neck. 1,000,000 times yes. The following week after the proposal, they were still floating in the warm afterglow of that perfect night. Friends were calling, timelines were buzzing, and Kamara couldn't stop stealing glances at her finger, like the silver band might disappear. They were seated at their favorite cafe in Yaba when Kanye, still sipping his black coffee, said it plainly. Well, both apply for leave next month. Kamara raised a brow, amused. So fast? What am I waiting for? He asked, eyes steady. We've found each other. It's time to let the rest of the world catch up. She smiled, leaning back in her seat. Okay, let's do it. Just like that, the countdown began. The month passed in a blur of gentle anticipation. They coordinated their work schedules, declined weekend parties, and quietly prepared for the journey. There was no drama, no overthinking, just that quiet certainty that when love is right, it moves. Kanye booked the road trip himself. He said flying was too fast. He wanted to feel the land beneath him, to watch it change with every mile they traveled. Kamara didn't argue. She just packed her small box with dresses, snacks, and a tinge of nerves she didn't admit out loud. On the morning of their departure, the city felt unusually still. They arrived at Jibawa by 6:30 a.m., bleary-eyed but excited. The bus was half full, young men with headphones, mothers with babies, one older man reading a tattered newspaper. Kamara tucked herself beside Kanye near the window, and the vehicle rumbled to life. Lagos peeled away behind them. The farther they drove, the more the landscape softened. Concrete gave way to tall grasses. Billboard noise became birdsong. Kamara rested her head on Kanye's shoulder, humming to Burna Boy songs leaking from someone's Bluetooth speaker. Hours passed. They stopped at Benin for lunch, boiled yam and pepper sauce eaten under a makeshift canopy. Kanye paid for both plates without a word. Kamara fed him a bite of fish with her fingers. Everything felt easy. I forgot how green the South is, Kanye said as they crossed into Delta. She nodded. It's wild and peaceful at the same time, like it never asks to be understood. By evening, they entered Asaba outskirts. Kamara sat up straighter now, pointing out old haunts, the bakery that never reopened, the church her mother still attends, the muddy football field where her cousin tore his ankle. They switched vehicles in town and got on a kiki that would take them the rest of the way to Kamara's family house. Kanye grew quieter, not tense, but still, watching, as if his body remembered something his mind hadn't yet caught. Kamara was too distracted to notice. She was texting her mother, almost home. With him. Be nice. They rode past the riverbank, past her old primary school, past rows of familiar trees. The kiki made a final turn onto a quiet street flanked by hibiscus and dust. We're here, Kamara announced, excitement blooming in her voice. Kanye looked around slowly. The street, the broken gutter, the compound wall with the faint graffiti that said One Love 1997. His breath caught, just for a second. They pulled up before a green gate. Kamara jumped down, calling out to someone inside. Mama, open the gate. I brought trouble. The gate creaked open. Kanye stepped out. And then, stillness. He stood there, rooted, staring at the compound like it was some half-remembered dream. The mango tree in the corner. The crooked water pipe by the side wall. The way the veranda stretched out like a waiting arm. He knew this place. Not from stories. From memory. Kamara was already halfway in when she turned and noticed his expression. You okay? Kanye nodded slowly, but his eyes betrayed him. They were searching the compound, peeling back time. Then from inside, a voice called out, a woman's voice. Warm, commanding. Kamarachi, where's this husband you're hiding? Kamara beamed. Mama.
He's shy.
But Kanye couldn't move. His throat tightened. His heart beat a strange rhythm. Because just then, another figure appeared at the door.
A man.
Older, graceful, a presence that demanded attention. Kamara turned.
Papa.
Meet Kanye. The man stepped forward, looked at Kanye, and froze. Kanye stared back, blood draining from his face. The silence was sharp, deafening. Chief Ibyob. Kanye knew that face, etched deep into the corners of his childhood like an old wound that never fully healed. It was the same face from the days when he and his mother lived in this very compound, long before life had taught him how to forget. He had been just 7 when this man, had thrown his mother out, voice raised, pride unshaken. He remembered the confusion, the hurried packing, the silent tears. His mother had carried him on her back and walked away, never looking back. They never returned. Now, 30 years later, he, a man of 37, stood staring at the ghost of that past. The chief, older now, carried himself with the same commanding presence, but the years had veiled his memory. He didn't recognize the grown man before him, but Kanye recognized him. The compound, the layout, the tree, the tension in the air. There was no mistake. This wasn't just Kamara's father. This was his father too. Kanye's lips parted, but the only word that escaped was,
No.
Kamara turned sharply at Kanye's voice.
No?
She asked, laughing lightly, confused. What do you mean, no? But Kanye couldn't answer. His body felt frozen in place, heart pounding with the fury of a locked door rattling in his chest. He stared at Chief Ibyob and suddenly, he wasn't a man anymore. He was a boy again. A boy clutching his mother's wrapper. A boy watching a man he once called Papa shove their world into ruin. The chief, meanwhile, squinted at Kanye, trying to place the familiarity in his face. You look like... The old man began, voice cautious. Kanye cut him off, his voice low, ragged. You don't recognize me? Kamara's smile faded. Kanye, what's going on? Silence. Then, Kanye turned to her. His eyes, for the first time in their love story, held something she couldn't understand. You said this is your father, he said, voice breaking slightly. Chief Ibyob aka Jetto. Kamara was shocked that Kanye knew her father's nickname known by the villagers. She never told him, how did you know that? She asked, looking confused. Kanye looked back at the man. My mother is Ijeoma Akpa. The chief's face paled. Visibly. He stepped back like he'd seen a ghost. Ijeoma? He whispered. Kamara blinked, confusion blooming into slow-brewing dread. Why are you saying her name like that?
You.
Know his mother? Chief Ibyob didn't speak. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. But the words wouldn't form.
Kanye didn't wait.
He turned to Kamara, gently now, like delivering a wound wrapped in velvet. When I was 7, I lived here with my mother, until he threw her out. Threw us out. Kamara stumbled back, shaking her head.
No. Kanye. No.
I remember everything, he said, voice steadier now, anger cooling into heartbreak. The mango tree, that water pipe, that green gate, and him.
No.
Kamara whispered again, as if saying it enough could reverse it. Her mother, who had stepped in to check on her food cooking, appeared at the doorway then, wiping her hands on a towel, confused by the tension. Kamarachi, why is everyone? She stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes fell on Kanye, then shifted to her husband, and the color drained from her face.
Ebube.
She whispered. Chief Ibyob finally found his voice. It's him, Ijeoma's son. A terrible silence followed. Kamara looked at her mother, then her father, then Kanye. What is happening here?
Can somebody explain to me?
I'm lost. Her voice cracked. He's your... Chief couldn't complete his words. Your brother, your step-brother, Kamara's mother completed. Your what? Kamara laughed out loud, then let out a sharp, broken breath, like something inside her cracked wide open. She took 2 steps back, covering her mouth with both hands. Her eyes brimmed with tears, not the kind that fall, but the kind that sting and sit, refusing to be real. You're joking, right? Sadly, it's the truth, Kamara. I'm his son, Kanye said.
No. No.
This is a mistake. I love you, she said suddenly, helplessly, as if trying to cast a spell to change the truth. We're getting married, Kanye. We just got engaged. His eyes softened, but the pain didn't leave. I know. Her mother was weeping now, silently. Chief Abiyub sat on the low veranda, head in his hands. The man who had once commanded rooms now looked smaller than shame itself. Kamara looked at Kanye again, her voice trembling. Please tell me this is some horrible joke. He wished he could. Instead, he whispered, I wish I didn't remember. But I do. I remember everything. They stood there, 2 lovers on the edge of something they couldn't name. Love had brought them here. But blood had rewritten the story. Just before them, the compound stood still, familiar, haunted. And between them, the silence of shared pain stretched like a shadow.
Kanye didn't say goodbye.
He didn't wait to be offered water. Didn't let them explain. As the truth landed with the force of an earthquake, he simply turned around, walked past the green gate, and disappeared into the same road they'd come in on, dust rising in his wake, silence trailing behind him. Kamara fell to the ground. Not fainting, just folding, like her body couldn't carry the weight of what had just unraveled. Her legs gave way beneath her, and her palms hit the earth of the compound where she had once played as a child. Tears came, not loud, not dramatic, but deep. Broken. Endless. Her mother dropped to her knees beside her, gathering Kamara into her arms.
Nwam.
Nwam, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Kamara said nothing. She only wept, face buried in her mother's lap, shaking like a dry leaf in the wind. That night, after the silence had settled like dust in the corners of their home, Kamara sat curled on the old floral couch in their modest living room. Her eyes were swollen, lips dry, and her spirit visibly drained. The TV played an old Nollywood classic she wasn't watching. Her mother sat beside her, clutching a glass of water, unsure how to begin. After minutes of thick silence, Mama spoke. Kamara, she began softly. Did you both?
Did you?
Kamara turned slowly, her voice hoarse but clear. Did we have sex? Her mother blinked, caught off guard by her candor. Kamara let out a sad, almost bitter smile.
No, we didn't.
I told him I wanted to stay celibate until marriage, and he respected that. A long breath escaped her mother's lungs, one so deep it seemed to pull relief from her very bones. She placed a trembling hand on her chest. So we are safe, she whispered. At least no abomination was committed. But Kamara broke down again at those words. She pulled her knees to her chest, her voice cracking. Safe? Mama, I lost the love of my life. Tears flowed freely once more.
You don't understand. He was my peace.
He knew how to calm storms I didn't even know I had.
He saw me.
He loved me. So purely. He was my home. Her mother's eyes welled up, but she held them back. I know, Nwam. I know. Kamara shook her head. You don't. We talked about names for our children. We planned the kind of garden we'd have. We dreamed together. And now, just like that, it's gone. The silence that followed was brutal. Her mother reached for her hand. Life has a way of tearing things before you even understand why they were given. But you will heal. Kamara stared at her, voice barely a whisper.
How?
I don't know, her mother admitted. But pain, when it runs this deep, only means that love was real. And even if it's buried now, it mattered. Kamara closed her eyes. I wish I could hate him. That would be easier. But you can't, her mother said gently. No, Kamara whispered. Because even now, somewhere in this same town, he's hurting too. And I can't stop loving him. Outside, the crickets sang into the night, indifferent to the heartbreak inside the house. And in that small living room, mother and daughter sat, one grieving a love lost, the other grieving a past that had finally come to collect its dues. The fire between them had not turned to hatred. It had turned to ash. But even ash remembers the flame. Kanye didn't remember the journey back. He couldn't recall what roads they passed, which stations they stopped at, or what questions the driver asked when he entered the next available bus without Kamara. Everything moved in a blur, like time had folded in on itself. His body was on the bus, staring out the window, but his mind was still at the green gate, frozen in front of a past that had never truly let him go. He arrived in Lagos the next morning, empty-handed, heart-heavy, and numb. He didn't return to his apartment in Yaba. Instead, he checked into a small lodge off Allen, somewhere anonymous, somewhere that didn't feel familiar. He needed silence. Not the kind Lagos gave, but the kind that came from within. He sat on the bed for hours, still wearing the clothes from the trip, staring at the ceiling as the fan spun without urgency. 30 years. Had buried those years deep, boxed them up like forgotten toys in a dark attic. But one look at Chief Abube, his face, his stance, that slight lift of chin when he spoke, and every painful memory rushed back like a floodgate had burst. His mother. Her cries that night. The slam of the compound gate. The shame. The silence that followed for years. Every time he asked, "Where's my father?" Now he knew. His father hadn't disappeared. He had chosen to forget. And in a cruel twist, Kanye had fallen in love with the daughter of the man who had once thrown them out like they were nothing. His daughter. His sister. His heart ached. Not with rage, but with grief. Grief for the life he almost had. The family he once begged for. And most of all, for Kamara, the only woman who had ever made him feel whole. He thought of her often in the nights that followed. The way she laughed with her eyes first. The way she always used her thumb to wipe food off the corner of his lips. The way she paused before saying, "I love you," like she wanted to mean it every time. He hadn't called. Couldn't bring himself to. What would he say? "Am your brother? I still love you?" There were no words for the ruin this truth had caused. That evening, he finally called his mother. "Mama," he said, his voice strained. "Kanye? Are you okay?" Her voice immediately shifted, concerned, alert.
"No," he said.
"I went to Delta." A long silence. "She's Chief Abube's daughter," he added. Another pause. "Who?" "Kamara, my fiancé," he replied. "Oh, my God," his mother exclaimed. Kanye exhaled, eyes closed. "You didn't tell me he had another family." "I didn't know," she whispered. "After he sent us away, I cut him off. I never looked back. I didn't think he'd have a daughter I'd fall in love with." Kanye finished for her, bitterly. "I'm so sorry, my son." Kanye didn't speak for a while. His throat tightened. "She was the best part of me, Mama. And now I've lost her. Because of something that happened when I was a boy." His mother wept quietly on the other end. That night, Kanye stood by the window of the lodge, staring out into the Lagos night, the same city where they met, fell in love, shared laughter like promises. He touched the silver band in his pocket, the one meant for their wedding day, the one that now had nowhere to go. "I'm sorry, Kamara," he whispered, "not just for leaving, but for loving her with a heart she was never meant to keep." The office hadn't changed. The same elevator music, the same hum of chatter from the creative room, the same smell of burnt coffee from the overworked machine near the conference hall. But for Kanye, everything felt off, as if time had moved forward, but he hadn't. It was his first day back at work after the trip, after the truth. He stepped into the open-plan space dressed sharp as always, but quieter than usual. He nodded at greetings, avoided too many eyes, and headed straight to his desk. Then someone asked, "So, how did it go?" "The trip to Delta. You've officially become in-law now, right?" Kanye looked up, caught off guard. A few other team members perked up, curious. A mini crowd was forming. He managed a tight smile.
"Well,
"We discovered we can't be together." A pause. Confused looks. "Wait, what?" a copywriter asked.
why?"
Kanye took a breath, met their eyes. "Well, apparently, We happen to be siblings." The entire floor went still for a second, like someone had hit a mute button. Mouths opened. Eyes widened.
No way.
"Guy, you're joking. What kind of Nollywood script is that?" One designer exclaimed, clutching her chest. Kanye gave a small, humorless chuckle. "I wish I was. Real life wrote this one." A respectful silence followed, thick with sympathy and disbelief. Someone muttered a stunned, "Gotta beg." Another whispered, "So sorry, man." But he didn't stay long. After a brief meeting with HR, he ducked out early. There were no words to drown the echo of what had just confessed. Later that evening, as twilight stretched over the city, Kanye found himself standing in front of Camarus Gate. It felt different now. Not just because of what they knew, but because he no longer belonged in her world the way he used to. He knocked. She opened the door herself. Kamara looked tired. No makeup, hair loosely tied, wearing an oversized tee and shorts. But she was still stunning, still Kamara. "You came," she said softly. "I had to." They sat in her small living room, silent for a while. A half-packed suitcase lay open by the couch, filled with books, gadgets, and fabrics. Kamara finally looked at him then, her eyes soft but tired. "It's not your fault. Or mine. We didn't know. We loved each other the best way we could. That's not something to be ashamed of." She gave a sad laugh, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "At least we're still family now, siblings for that matter." The weight of those words settled between them.
Heavy.
Ironic. Inevitable. Kanye moved closer and hugged her. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't fiery or passionate like it used to be. But it was full. Heavy with memory, with grief, with the ache of something lost and something found. Kamara held him tightly, eyes closed, as if this hug was the final verse of their unfinished poem. They didn't say goodbye. They didn't have to. Some stories don't end with a period. They end with a pause. Share your thoughts on this story in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe for more captivating African tales and reviews, brought to you by Loveth.